Hello and welcome to the Dream Team Professor podcast. My name is Scott, and in this episode, we're looking at the top players to target in Game Week 8 Sun Dream Team. Now, we've had an international break, but we're straight back in with a European Double Game Week. So we're going to be targeting the European sides again. City, Arsenal, Liverpool, Man United, Villa, Spurs, and then Chelsea are a European side, but they're playing a completely different 11 in Europe. So I think we probably have to stop calling them a European side when it comes to targeting the fixtures. The deadline is Saturday, 11 a.m. It's an early kickoff. Spurs and West Ham played at Spurs. Spurs themselves have got a European double game week this week. So West Ham at home and then AZ Alkmaar at home. They have been rotating quite a bit through the European competition so far, mixing it up a little bit. But there are a few things that are making me think they might potentially go a little bit stronger for this one. So AZ Alkmaar are their sort of toughest opponents to date when it comes to the Europa League. They also have Bergvall injured, which could be good for my team, as I have Madison and Kulusevski. So I'm hoping that one of them could potentially come in for Bergvall. In terms of United, they've been rotating a fair bit as well. They've got Brentford at home and Fenerbahce away. They have been rotating in Europe, but I feel like they might go a little bit stronger. Now they're under a little bit more pressure to get these results. But Brentford, Fenerbahce, I think they might go a little bit stronger for that European side. Try and get a little bit of momentum going. City and Arsenal are going to be the two top teams to target, in my opinion. So City have got some really, really good fixtures coming up. So it's Wolves away from home in that first fixture, and then Sparta Prague at home in the second. That Wolves fixture, Wolves are right down the bottom of the table. They've got the most goals conceded, whereas City have scored the most goals. So this is going to be a really, really nice one to target for Man City. The only thing I would say is Wolves have had a pretty poor run. And then that Sparta Prague home match. Arsenal, again, I think it looks like a nice double, but there are some injury concerns across both the defence and in attack for Arsenal. So it makes it a little bit harder to make our decisions. But Bournemouth away in the first fixture, and then Shakhtar Donetsk in the second. It looks like a nice week for Arsenal, but it does start to get a little bit harder after this. Villa, it looks okay for them. Fulham away from home and Bologna at home. I think this is a nice one to target, and their fixtures look good longer term as well. Fulham have been pretty good this season, but I still would expect Villa to be the favourites, even away from home at Fulham. And then Bologna, we saw Liverpool have a fairly comfortable victory against them, so I feel like they should be the favourites in that one as well. Liverpool have got a tough test themselves, so they've got Chelsea at home, which is probably going to be their toughest match of the season so far. They were pretty fortunate with how the fixtures have been for them so far, and yeah, been really, really solid, both at the back and going forward. Top of the league, not conceded many goals. I do think this is going to be their first real test. And then the fixtures get tough for them, so it's going to be interesting to see how they deal with that as well. RB Leipzig away from home in the Champions League. I thought at first this looked like a tough fixture, but I did see recently they lost to Atletico, I think conceding twice. Also conceded 3 goals against a 10-man Juventus in a previous match as well. So maybe that one may not be as tough as we first thought. Chelsea, if you are still interested, have Liverpool away from home, which looks tough. Panathinaikos away in the Europa Conference League. But like I said, they field pretty much a whole different 11. So can't really see us targeting them for double game week players. There are a few okay single game week fixtures in amongst it. You've got Leicester, who've got Southampton away, Brentford, the Man United away from home, but then I like them because they have got that Carabao Cup the week after. Southampton face Leicester at home. But other than that, you've got Everton, Ipswich away, Crystal Palace, Forest away. There isn't that much to choose from. So that is why we're going to be heavily focused on European sides for this one. Fixture volume, looking a bit further ahead. So game week 8 to game week 11. We have another international break after game week 11. So I've tried to bunch it into 8, 9, 10 and 11 as a group. The fixture ticker from ffstuff.co.uk is completely free. If you go over to their website, you can have a look at it yourself. The teams that are in Europe have 7 fixtures in this bunch. So 4 game weeks, 7 fixtures for the European sides. It's a European double game week. It's a Carabao Cup game week in game week 9. Europe in game week 10 again, and then in game week 11, it's just a single game week in the Premier League. So 7 fixtures for European sides, 5 fixtures for Premier League sides that are left in the Carabao Cup. So there we've got the likes of Newcastle, Crystal Palace, Brighton, Southampton, Brentford and Leicester. These teams all have 5 fixtures, and then 4 fixtures for everyone else who's not in the Carabao Cup anymore. just one fixture a week from 8 all the way through to game week 11. I'd say City have the best fixture run. I mentioned Wolves and Sparta Prague this week. They then have Southampton and then Tottenham away in the Carabao Cup in game week 9. That one looks like a really nice fixture. Game week 10, Bournemouth away, Sporting away. Again, pretty nice. And then Brighton away from home in game week 11. So a run of away fixtures. But you think all of these should be winnable for Man City. Arsenal, I said it gets a bit tougher from game week 9. So in game week 9, they've got Liverpool at home, Preston in the Cup, which you'd imagine there'd be a lot of rotation for. Then it's game week 10, Newcastle away, Inter away. Two really tough places to go. And then in 11, away at Chelsea. So after game week 8, I think we might be looking to maybe move on a few of our Arsenal players. Liverpool have Chelsea, RB Leipzig this week, but again, it gets a bit tougher for them too. So Arsenal in game week 9 away from home, Brighton away from home in the Cup. They then have Brighton at home in the Premier League and Bayer Leverkusen in game week 10 at home, followed by Villa in 11. So tough for Liverpool there. This is going to be a real test for them. Villa, it stays pretty good all the way through to around game week 10, game week 11. So Fulham and Bologna, Bournemouth, Crystal Palace, home double, that Crystal Palace match in the Cup. Spurs away from home, Club Brugge away from home in game week 10. And then Liverpool away in game week 11. That'll be a good one to watch. United, it's a nice fixture run, but their form is poor, so I'm not really going to look to target them until things turn around. In game week 9, it's West Ham away from home, and then Leicester at home, Chelsea at home, and then PAOK in the Europa League. Leicester at home in game week 11. So if they can start to pick up a bit of form, it looks okay, but I think I'd want to wait until I saw that firsthand. Spurs have got a mixed run. So starting off this week, it looks pretty good. West Ham at home, AZ Alkmaar away. Crystal Palace away in game week 9. They've not been that good so far at the Palace. And then City in the Carabao Cup. We'll have to wait and see what the lineups will be like for that one. Both teams have rotated a fair bit, but maybe they go stronger, seeing as they've drawn strong opponents. Villa at home in game week 10 looks tough. Galatasaray away, always a hard one. And then Ipswich at home in game week 11. So a bit of a mixed bag. Ends strong, middle gets a little bit tougher. Chelsea, tough Premier League fixtures coming up for them. And like I said, rotation in Europe. But game week 9 looks interesting. So we did say they rotate their whole 11 in Europe. So Liverpool, Panathinaikos this week. But then it's a Premier League match against Newcastle, followed by a Carabao Cup match against Newcastle away from home. And I'm hoping that maybe Cole Palmer will play both. They could just play the full rotated 11. But I think where it's a Premier League opposition, maybe they might mix it up and throw a few of their stronger players in. Game week 10, Man United away and Noah at home in Europa Conference League. I'm not sure who that is. And then at home to Arsenal in game week 11. So again, pretty tough for Chelsea. But all eyes on that double game week and game week 9 could be interesting. In terms of non-European punts, I mentioned Brentford, Man United this week, but then it's followed up with Ipswich and Sheffield Wednesday in the Carabao Cup. Now, they have rotated heavily in previous ones, so we're not quite sure how they'll go in this one, but maybe Brian and Buemo could be of interest. It's then Fulham away and Bournemouth at home in the following fixtures. You have also got Leicester, who have got a nice run, but maybe less options to choose from. They face Southampton, followed by Forest and Man United in the double and Ipswich away. So that does look like a nice bunch of games, maybe if you're looking for someone a bit cheaper. And then Newcastle's fixtures, Brighton at home, the double against Chelsea, Arsenal at home, and then Forest away. But again, a bit like United, I think we're going to want to see a bit more form from Newcastle. Again, if you want to check out that fixture ticker, it's from ffstuff.co.uk. You've got a load of free data on the players. You can look at the price change predictions and this fixture ticker, plus more over at ffstuff.co.uk. I'll put a link in the description below. Projected goals from 11of5.com. Looking at their projected goals for match day 8, Man City lead the way with 2.35 expected against Wolves. This is just the Premier League fixtures. Liverpool are second with 2.30, which is surprising, having Chelsea at home. Spurs 2.27 against West Ham at home. And then Newcastle are the other side, 2.07 against Brighton Hove Albion. Man United down there with 1.88, and then Arsenal in sixth with 1.86. Although I feel like Arsenal, I'd predict them to at least score 2 against Bournemouth. Maybe wishful thinking there. No bias from me. You can notice that City are also the highest projected goals in match day 9 as well. So if you do want to go over to 11ofire.com, it's quite handy if you're looking at what players you might want to bring in for next week. I'm going to go and talk about boosters quickly, because a lot of people have spoken about playing the goal bonus booster this week, and I feel like it's handy to look at the predicted goals at the same time to get a bit of a gauge on that. So bonus thoughts, the goal bonus, I feel like it could be an okay option if your team's looking good. There are some nice double game weeks this week. We spoke about City. I think Arsenal's looks good, and Liverpool as well are right up there on the projected goals, although I do feel like that match will be tougher than the projected goals are saying. Only thing I don't like about it this week is we've just come off the back of an international break. We can see from Arsenal that there's quite a few injury doubts in the mix. You'd be very disappointed if you did play a goal bonus and then your players ended up being injured or rested. I also think if we waited a little bit longer later in the season, you would have built up more team value, and then you should be able to fit more big hitters into your side. I like the look of Premier League double game weeks later in the season with the likes of them Palmer being selectable for a double game week. You could also, if you're struggling for budget, you might be able to get like an Embuemo or a Cunha or someone that's a little bit cheaper that still is on penalties, one of the main goal scorers in the side, maybe a João Pedro if he's fit. I feel like that would be the way I'd want to approach it later in the season, with a little bit more budget and a little bit more players to choose from. But I do think it is a really nice week. City, Arsenal, Liverpool, all having okay fixtures. Spurs as well. I just think there could be some rotation in those European matches that could maybe throw you off, or international break, surprise injuries, that sort of thing. You could also look at max captain, potentially. I think Haaland is the standout captain for me this week, but you could make a strong argument for Saka off the back of his 20-pointer last week. He's got Bournemouth away, Shakhtar at home. He's a slight injury doubt, but I do think he'll play. And then you've got Salah as well up against Chelsea. I know Chelsea are a good side, but they have got Cucurella out injured currently. I think Fofana's also injured. And so on the right-hand side, Cucurella missing, maybe Salah does a little bit better. So your max captain would give you a bit of insurance there, but I do think that Haaland is the standout captain for me this week. 12th man, I can't really see a player that I'd particularly want a 12th man. Maybe if there's someone in your team that you really can't get to this week, maybe a Phil Foden perhaps, but otherwise I don't really see the appeal of 12th man this week. In terms of clean sheets, Man City lead the way, so leading the way with goals and leading the way with clean sheets. 43% chance of keeping a clean sheet this week against Wolves. And then Sparta Prague at home. You'd expect rotation, but you'd expect them to be pretty strong. They just have been giving away the odd goal in quite a few of the matches they've played recently, but I do think they'll have quite a few clean sheets in this run. Southampton at home next week. Tottenham away, I'd expect goals, but then Bournemouth, Sporting, Brighton, I do think there could be other clean sheets for City. If you are on 11ofI.com, you can sort by week, but you can also sort by a batch of weeks. So you can see here all the way through to match day 13. But City are leading the way across this period. Arsenal are the only other team reaching the 40% mark away at Bournemouth. But there are a few doubts again who's going to start for Arsenal at the back. So obviously we had Timber and White absent from the last match. Calafiori's been playing at left back, but if everyone is back fit, it's going to be harder to decide who is going to be starting. Tomiyasu seems to have picked up another injury, so that's him out of the equation. But there are still a few questions unanswered about who might start. If you have got Sells in goal, maybe you'd be tempted to keep him a little bit longer. So 32% chance of a clean sheet puts Nottingham Forest as the third highest for match day 8, followed by Spurs. And then after that, it's below 30%. Everton, Liverpool in 6th, Man United in 7th, and Southampton in 8th with a 28% chance. If you found that last section useful, please do leave a like, subscribe to the channel if you're not already to get kept up to date with all the latest Dream Team content. We just crossed the 3,500 subscriber mark as well, so thank you to everyone that has subscribed to the channel. Let's kick things off with Manchester City then. So projected to score the most goals in the Premier League in the next 2 game weeks, with that away match against Wolves and then the home match against Southampton next week. They have Sparta Prague at home in the Champions League also this week, so I think it looks like a pretty straightforward double game week for City. They've scored the most goals, and then they're against two of the bottom three defences in Wolves and Southampton. So it looks like there should be a lot of goals for them in the upcoming weeks. Haaland, for me, is the standout captain for game week 8. Arguably even game week 9 with that Southampton fixture. So I probably am going to end up captaining him for the next 2 game weeks. He disappointed in game week 6 against Newcastle, and he disappointed again against Fulham. But how long can we back against Haaland? He scored 4 against Wolves in the home fixture last season, but he did actually blank at Molineux. So if you think he's going to be contained again by Wolves, maybe you want to go elsewhere, but I am backing the big man in this one. He's got 8 goals in 4 matches against Wolves. Foden was a player that I really, really wanted for this week, and he's been in all of my drafts over this international break. So he has only had 3 starts so far this season and a couple of sub appearances as well. Obviously didn't start the season. We don't know why. He was in for the first game and then he missed a couple, and then he had a few sort of bench appearances, but he has had now 3 starts, or 2 starts, sorry, in a row, and 3 starts in his last 4. So he does seem to be getting those minutes in his legs now, and whatever issues he had seems to be behind him now. In the 3 starts that he's had, he's at a 7.3 average. I know that is being a bit selective and skewing the numbers a little bit, but we can only really judge him on the games that he's started, I think. And in those 3 starts, 7.3 average. His average last season was 8. In the season where he was the highest scoring player in the game. So I do think he hasn't been far off of that. He got 3 bonus points against Fulham. He hit 55 bonus points across last season. So he does seem like one of these players that doesn't just rely on goals and assists. But last season, just a quick reminder, he did score 26 goals and got 13 assists. So if he can get anywhere near that form for this run of games, I would love to have him in my side. Rico Lewis, 4 million. Now, he is really up there as one of the most owned defenders at the minute. He's currently the 3rd most transferred in player of this game week as well, and for good reason. He's had 9 out of 10 starts this season, which you wouldn't have thought at the start of the season. Walker was missing for a bit at the start of the season, but Lewis has been so impressive when called upon. The 3rd highest scoring defender in the game. He's got 4 assists already, and he's had 4 starts in a row. 8 bonus points too. Positions that he's getting in are really, really attacking. So it's almost like you're getting an extra midfielder with the chance of getting these clean sheets. And City's fixture run looks good at both ends of the pitch. So I think Lewis is a really, really good pick. Vardiol, I would still prioritise getting him in ahead of Lewis if I could afford it. 4.9 million, gets bonus points. He's got the 2nd most of any defender at the minute with 10. I think he's just behind Porro. He's already got 1 goal and had 6 shots on target. So there were question marks if he'd be as attacking as last season. Definitely isn't as attacking as how he ended the season, but he is still, as you can see, with 6 shots on target, getting in and around the chances. Ideally, I would have both. I've got both in my team, and I think to really sort of stand out because of the ownership, I think you probably have to have more than one. But 1 as a minimum, I think. I've then been looking at 2nd and 3rd attackers because the fixtures look so good. Haaland is pretty much in everyone's team. I think Foden soon is going to be in a lot of people's teams. So I'm even thinking about potentially adding a 3rd City attacker / midfielder into the mix for this run of games. Doku and Savinho are the 2 that probably stand out to me, but you have got to be prepared for benchings if you do go for another City midfielder. You've got Bernardo, you've got Grealish, who both started the Fulham game. You've got Savinho and Doku, who have looked good at times this season. It seems like if you do choose one of these players, you are probably going to get a start, and then if you're lucky, a bench appearance. But with Wolves, Sparta, Southampton and Spurs, I think especially for game week 9, I'd possibly just bring one in and hope to get the Southampton fixture. But even the Spurs one, Spurs have been a little bit leaky at the back. I did see Kovacic right up there in the transferred in list at points last week because he has scored 2 in this game, got 17 points. He'll get a price rise. I think he scored in a previous match as well. I wouldn't go there. I do think that's a bit of a hot streak for the goals. I don't think they'll be consistent, but he's pretty much taking Rodri's space at the minute, and Rodri did used to get in amongst the goals. So maybe he'll get a few more than usual, but I just don't think I see that carrying on. On to my team, Arsenal. So game week 8 is nice, but game week 9 onwards gets pretty tough with Liverpool, Newcastle, Inter, and Chelsea all in that run. Arsenal have got injury concerns as well. So Bukayo Saka limped off in the England match, but Carsley sort of said it didn't seem to be as bad as what we first thought. So I think Saka, this is just my own feelings, I think that Saka is probably going to be able to start. Martinelli has also gone for tests after having an injury for Brazil. Havertz didn't go away on the international break, but I think that was probably more precautionary. And then we've got Tomiyasu injured again. Ben White was injured. Well, he wasn't going to go away on international duty anyway, but he was injured and missing from the last few games with a knee injury. And then Timber missed the last game before international break. So a lot of injury concerns with Arsenal. And as you can probably imagine, Arteta's probably not going to give anything away. So there might be a little bit of guesswork involved in game week 8. Saka, though, I'm not going to be removing him unless we hear concrete information that he is out. 20 points in that last match against Southampton, 3 goals for Arsenal, and he was involved in all 3 of them. 2 assists, 1 goal for himself. And he's got 11 returns now from 10 matches, the joint most attacking returns in the game. He's had double figures in half of the matches that he's played, and he's second for overall points. I do think there is a strong argument for a differential captaincy. It's just whether you want to take that chance with the talk about an injury. I think it's probably a bit too risky, and I'd rather go for Haaland. 3 goals, 8 assists for the season, though. Havertz, the second most goals scored behind Haaland. He's joined with quite a few other players on 6 goals, but he got another one in this Southampton match, 10 points. He's on 6 goals, 1 assist for the season, and he has the 4th most shots on target as well. Martinelli, again, with his injury, we don't quite know. I think if I had him, I probably would hold. And then if you were unlucky and he didn't start, you'd hope that maybe he gets Shakhtar. I think he's due a price increase as well. If you're worried about it, you can always transfer him out. But I think I would keep him and take a chance. 2 goals, 2 assists for him this season. 3 returns in his last 3 matches. The same really applies for Trossard. I mean, if you had Trossard, I think the only thing you'd be worried about this week is that he seems like he's going to get a big price drop after only scoring the 1 point in that last match. It was a big surprise that Martinelli and Trossard didn't start, in my opinion. Trossard has been good on international break. He's been good when he's played. 2 goals, 2 assists this season. I think if I could afford to get away without the budget drop, I would keep Trossard. I think he's going to be good. And if there are the doubts over the other players, you at least know that he's fit. And then lastly, I'm going to go to Calafiori. Obviously, Saliba and Gabriel are great options, but they're very expensive, whereas Calafiori is not. He had 3 bonus points in the last match. He's got tackles in most games. And I still think until we get sort of concrete news over who's available out of White, Timber, I think Calafiori should have probably made that left-back spot his own. So I think he's still a really, really good pick. Reluctantly, we'll wait and see my team later. I think I am going to have to lose him this week, but I am really worried that there's 2 clean sheets potentially there in game week 8. Up next, Liverpool. So they were second for projected goals this week, which I thought was a surprise at home to Chelsea. But like I said, Cucurella and Fofana both out. So there's going to be a bit of rotation at the back for Chelsea. Maybe that plays into Liverpool's hands. And the RB Leipzig match away from home, I mentioned they'd conceded against Atletico twice and 3 times against Juventus. So maybe that fixture could be okay for Liverpool as well. Overall fixtures turn tough though longer term. So Arsenal, a Brighton double game week, Leverkusen and Villa in the near future. So it's going to be a real test for Liverpool. Their defence, they have only conceded 2 goals in the Premier League this season. Their expected goals against is 5.1, so maybe they've been a little bit fortunate with that. But overall, defensively under Slot, they look to be a lot more secure than they did previously. But the real test now will also be what happens to their defence with no Alisson. So he's picked up an injury. And it looks like Kelleher is going to be good all the way through up until the next international break, which is quite a lot of fixtures looking at the calendar. He's only 2.3 million, so he's a gift for those that have got a cheap keeper already. I had a look back and he averaged 3.7 last season versus Allison, who averaged 4.6. So there was quite a big drop off last season, but you kind of have to weigh up. We don't know. You could obviously go back and look, but we don't know how those fixtures compared. So it might not be a real fair test, but you imagine there would be some drop off. Allison is a world-class keeper. But when you compare that 3.7 average from Kelleher to some of the other budget keepers, it's still pretty competitive. So Henderson's on 3.7 points per game this season. Sells is 3.9. So compared to 3.7 from Kelleher, it's pretty good. And he's going to play twice a week. Also, that 3.7 from last season doesn't include bonus points that we get. So the rules have tweaked slightly since last season. So it could be a little bit better for Kelleher as well. Although the fixtures don't look great for clean sheets, I still just think in terms of playing twice a week, and then you've got save points as well, I think you'll definitely be up going for Kelleher compared to one of the budget keepers. If I was moving from a Vicario or Martinez, I probably would stick with what I had unless you really had nothing else to do. Mohamed Salah, I won't be selling this week, I mentioned. So he's one of 3 players that are in the 100 club already for points. 10-point average, 6 goals, 5 assists. He's completely nailed for these double game weeks as well. I think no Cucurella probably plays in his hands as well. So I think Salah is a really, really good pick still this week. Trent is a funny one. So obviously 10 points in the last game. I took him out. So a little bit disappointed about that. He got a shot on target, big chance created, and he's the highest scoring defender in the game. But the problem I'm having is deciding whether or not I think he's worth the money. 6.2 million. I think you've got to compare that to other big hitters in midfield and attack. And in terms of points per million, Vardiol and Konate are both higher points per million. Porro and Virgil van Dijk are also very close to what Trent's at. You can have a little look at that on ffstuff.co.uk as well. But it just makes you sort of wonder, is that budget better spent elsewhere? I think it is with some of these attacking fixtures for the likes of Foden. Aston Villa. So we're still waiting for a few updates from injured players. So Konsa and Onana. I think we're going to have to wait for the pressers. I feel like it sounds like Onana's going to be okay. Konsa, I'm not too sure. Ollie Watkins will be the player that will be of most interest, I think. So he's had 2 blanks in a row. But before that, he had 7 attacking returns in 5 matches. So I can't imagine that he's going to stay quiet for long. I would still back him to start all of these fixtures, apart from that Carabao Cup one in Game Week 9. And there's a few nice ones in there that I think he'll do well in. I think Fulham's an okay fixture. Bologna's okay. Bournemouth at home looks good. Crystal Palace, I think that's probably going to be a Duran match in the Carabao Cup. Game Week 10, Spurs away, Club Brugge away, but Spurs give up plenty of chances. And then Liverpool away in Game Week 11. I still think Watkins could do really, really well in this run, but he is quite expensive. 4 goals, 3 assists for him so far, and it's whether or not you want to take that price drop from him after those 2 blanks. Rodgers at 3.2. Again, a couple quiet games for him, a 2-point and a 3-pointer. But 4.8 average points is still really good value for me for 3.2 million. He's got secure minutes. He's playing pretty much every fixture, double game weeks, not really getting subbed off that early either. So I think these are still a really good hold. Digne, 3.4 million. He is proving really, really good value. 5.9 average. He started all of the games apart from Wickham in the Cup. And he's had 2 assists already. So really, really great from Digne. Taking corners, taking set pieces. I really like him as a pick. But someone I'm liking also this week is Matty Cash at 2.7 million. Mostly for the price. I think that's a really, really nice enabling price. It lets you get some big hitters in midfield attack. He has had a couple injuries already, which is a little bit worrying. I think it was the same injury as well, hamstring. But he did get 90 minutes in the last match. And then he's had sort of 2 weeks off almost with this international break as well. So I think Cash at 2.7 is a really nice pick. FF Stuff have him as predicted to go up 0.2 as well. So I do really like Cash. 4 goals, 3 assists last season. So we know he can get attacking returns. And he had 15 bonus points as well last season. And then Martinez. A really, really good performance against Manchester United. Turned it on. 4 saves, 9 points from him, and probably due a rise as well. I think if I did have Martinez, I would just keep him for now and then reassess maybe how Kelleher gets on. But Kelleher is an option if you really do need to sell your keeper. to get a bit of budget for someone else. On to Spurs, who seem to be getting quite a bit of interest this week. They've got the number one transferred in player of the game week so far, which is Brennan Johnson. Spurs have got the highest XG in the Prem at the minute, and they're the second highest for shots and shots on target in the league. So a really, really good attack. Bit iffy at the back, though. West Ham, AZ Alkmaar look like really, really good fixtures. And then Palace away in Game Week 9, I think looks good. But after that, I mentioned it gets a bit tougher. City at home in the Cup, Villa at home in the Prem, Galatasaray away from home. But then Game Week 11, Ipswich at home in a single. That's a really, really nice one, and maybe one that you could get a differential captain for. Dom Solanke at 4.4 million. I think he's probably my favourite pick of the bunch, actually, from Spurs at the moment. Not someone that I've got in my team or am going to bring in. But if I was looking for an attacker, he would be right up there. I think at 4.4 million, he's probably still the best combination of attacking threat and value when it comes to that price. He's got the minutes there, and the performances are coming. So 3 goals, 2 assists from 6 matches is a really, really good return from him. Does sound like Son is going to be available. So I think that's probably going to be a positive for Solanke, but he probably would lose the chance of taking pens. Brennan Johnson, 3.8 million, is on fire. So 6 goals, 2 assists for the season and a 7.4 average. He's just on a mad streak. So 6-game streak of scoring. Due another rise as well, and he's the 7th overall point scorer in the game. 10 points in that 3-2 loss to Brighton. If I was transferring in someone or looking for a budget pick, he would be the guy to go for, especially to get the price increase as well. I just think you probably get him and then ride the form. I don't think it's going to be sustainable. James Maddison is someone that I was looking at taking out this week, or maybe prior to the Brighton match. He's going to get another attacking return in this one. 9 points, 4 ppm, so just slightly off of bonus. But he's the highest bonus scoring player in the game at the minute with 16 points. 7.6 average, 2 goals, 4 assists. He's taken set pieces as well. So I think he's a really, really good pick. I was thinking about taking him out to fit Foden in, but I've had to reshape my team, and I'll come on to that a bit later. The fear I have this week is that I take him out and then he goes and has his first European double game week. We saw it happen to Porro. I think it may have happened with Son potentially, or Solanke, where they played one and didn't play the other. Maybe this is the time for a harder fixture where he plays AZ Alkmaar. He's been off in the international break as well, nice and fresh. So I'm going to keep him and hope that he does have the double, but I'm not certain of it. I have got Kulusevski as well, a bit like Rodgers. He's really, really good for the price. He is due a 0.3 drop, which I think probably is a little bit harsh, but he's had a 4.1 average. And I just don't think he feels bad for that price point. He's not taking up too much of your value. He's on set pieces. He's got the chance to play in Europe. He's on really good form as well. So I think that he's a really good pick. There is a Bergvall injury doubt at the minute, which is also making me think either Kulusevski or Maddison seem like they could play this European match. I think they've been playing Sarr and Basuma in Europe alongside a number 10. So either Kulusevski or Maddison surely have to play. Porro, 4.6 million. He is due a drop, but I think he's one of the best defenders you can choose in the game. He gets points from everything. He's attacking. He's got 11 bonus, which is the most of all defenders, and a 6.4 average. For that price, I think he is really good. It's just that clean sheets never really feel steady, but they do seem to have got a couple already this season. If I did go for Vicario last week and got him in, I really wouldn't panic after conceding 3 against Brighton. I still think he's a decent enough keeper when it comes to getting bonus points, save points, and you will still get a couple of clean sheets in this run, I think. Just to quickly mention Man United, I'm not that hot on them for this run. The fixtures are there, but the form just isn't at the minute, I think. You've got Mazraoui, who seems to be out. I think they discovered like he had a heart condition. So he seems like he's going to be out for a couple of games at least. You've got Maguire, who went off injured in the last game. So they seem to be in a little bit of a crisis at the back at the minute. So I don't really want to rely on their defenders. And then they're second bottom for goals scored in the Premier League. So I think I'll just wait. And obviously, if they have a really good match against Brentford or Fenerbahce, you might consider it for that Game Week 9 double. But as it stands, I think I probably would wait. Bruno Fernandes, don't forget, he is also suspended for the Fenerbahce match, obviously getting 2 red cards in the previous game week or the game week before that. Obviously, the Premier League one was overturned, but the European one still stands. It'll be this game week 8 fixture that he's missing for. Chelsea, like I said, a completely different 11 for European football. So it's not a true double, which means it's pretty much a single against Liverpool, which is not great. I've got Palmer in my team currently. Went a little bit early there. I think if I had Palmer, well, I do have Palmer, I would hold him all the way through to game week 9 because that double against Newcastle does look really, really appealing. And then you can decide whether or not to sell him when Europe returns again. You've got Madueke at 3.3 million. He looks really, really good against Forest. He has been good in the Premier League. And I did notice that he was in the European squad, but he hasn't had minutes in Europe and he hasn't had minutes in the Cup so far. So I would be a little bit reluctant to go there, but maybe one to watch for a bit later. Brentford, Brian Mbeumo has been incredible this season. So if you did want to go for him, I wouldn't blame you. It's Man United away. They have got a few problems at the back at the minute, so maybe you fancy him for this one. 6 goals so far this season. He's on pens as well. And then lastly, Leicester. Nice fixtures, and again, not someone that I would really target, but if you are looking for some really, really cheap enablers, Wout Face, 2.1 million, 9 points last week, will rise in price. And then you've got Buonanotte as well, who's got a few attacking returns already this season. 2 goals, 2 assists, 2.8 million, 13 points. It's not for me, but maybe if you've got one eye on the Cup, he could potentially get minutes in that one as well. Now for a team update and my initial transfer thoughts. So for game week 7, I got 70 points for the game week, 887 total now. And it was a red arrow to 186th, but a drop of about 46 places wasn't bad considering I did get the captaincy wrong. I went for Haaland, just the 8 points with the armband on, and Bukayo Saka. I saw quite a few people in our Dream Team Tonic Discord and on Twitter went for Saka. So well done if you did it. He would have got 20 points, doubled to 40. But all things considered, a pretty decent week, I think, apart from the captaincy. Sells in goal, got me 4 points, few save points in that game against Chelsea. Rico Lewis didn't keep the clean sheet, but still came away with 6. Vardiol, 3 points. And then Calafiori, one of my transfers in, he got me 6 points because he got 3 bonus points. So he was okay for this week. One of my transfers in for Trent Alexander-Arnold. My other transfer was Palmer in for Tielemans. So that combination, Calafiori and Palmer in for Tielemans and Trent, actually scored exactly the same amount of points. So Palmer did get the assist, but just the 8 points from him. Bukayo Saka, 20 points. I don't feel too disappointed that I didn't captain him, to be honest, because I was never really close. I'm quite a safe playing manager, and Haaland did seem like the safe captaincy to me. 80% of the top 1K went for Haaland, so I've fallen 40 places by not going for Saka almost, but if I'd have gone for Saka and it didn't pay off and then Haaland banged, I'd have been falling maybe 400 places instead of 40 places. So not really disappointed with that much. Maddison, 9 points. That goal against Brighton was a little bit fluky. I think the keeper should have really saved it, but he's been doing really well this season. Rodgers and Kulusevski, 2 points for Rodgers, 1 point for Kulusevski. A disappointing week for these two, but they're very cheap players. These blanks will happen. Haaland, 8 points with the armband, and then Salah. I think he can be excused a blank. He's done pretty well so far this season. Looking at this team, initial thoughts. I was thinking I definitely want Phil Foden for this week. That was one thing that I knew sort of straight away going into this week. And my initial route to him was going to be a straight swap with James Maddison. I've got 1.9 million in the bank currently. And then after seeing Alisson pick up that injury, straight away I thought the perfect opportunity to get a double game week goalkeeper in Kelleher in for Sells. It doesn't quite work out very well for budget, firstly. Sells is due a rise. Maddison's also due a rise, so that's not great. Kelleher will obviously stay the same, and I think Foden is due to stay the same as well. So nothing really to gain in terms of budget. But it didn't feel nice taking Maddison out of the team as much as I wanted Foden. So I was looking at where else I could change things. So Rico Lewis and Vardiol, I know I want to keep them. Cole Palmer, Saka, Haaland, Salah, I don't want to lose. And I've just said I don't want to lose Maddison. Now, then I'm looking at Calafiori, Rodgers, and Kulusevski. Now, I keep doing this thing where I keep bringing in a player, then taking him out the week after. I think I went to Porro, to Trent, to Calafiori. And I do really want to keep Calafiori for this game week, but I can't take Rodgers and Kulusevski out and bring Foden in because that will give me that 2.2 million for the other option. So Kulu probably is going to stay. He is getting a 0.3 drop, but I quite fancy him for next week. So I'm looking at maybe taking Calafiori and Rodgers out. Now, I am reluctant about taking Calafiori out because I do think these are two really nice clean sheet potential fixtures. But Foden feels like a non-negotiable for me this week. So I'm looking at Rodgers out for Foden. And then that gives me 2.7 or 2.8 for a replacement. And I'm looking at Matty Cash from Aston Villa. He's due a 0.2 rise. And while I don't think his sort of clean sheet potential is as good as Calafiori's this week, the fixtures do then turn for Arsenal the week after with that Liverpool game, which I don't really expect a clean sheet in. And then Preston, do I really think Calafiori is going to play that one? Probably not. It then gets tough. I think it's Newcastle away, Inter away. So I don't want to lose Calafiori this week, but potentially I was going to move him on later on anyway. So I'm thinking of doing that. Bringing in Phil Foden for Rodgers. I still think Rodgers is a really, really good pick. Calafiori as well. So just because I'm taking him out doesn't mean you need to take him out. I think just in this situation, I just want Foden more than I want Rodgers and that I want Calafiori. And I think Cash is more than good enough as a replacement. He has only played the full 90 or one full 90 since coming back from injury, but he has now had a fairly big break over the international break. You've also got the Concert injury. Concert had played at right back at times, but it looks now like Carlos is going to have to play centre back, which sort of opens it up for Matty Cash. So I'm comfortable having Cash as my replacement for Calafiori. I do think it is a downgrade, but it is a really nice price. And then I've got a really nice midfield here. Palmer, Saka, Maddison, Foden, Kulusevski with Haaland and Salah up top. That front seven, with it lined up like this, I do really like the look of that. And then the defence is decent enough as well. Lewis and Vardiol, the double up for City's nice fixtures. And then Matty Cash. I mean, Villa haven't looked the best for keeping clean sheets, but we've seen from Cash in previous seasons, he can get attacking returns, quite regularly hits tackle points. I think he got 15 bonus last season. And then holding sells for one more week. When we looked at the 11-5 clean sheet odds, that match against Crystal Palace, I think they're quite highly rated for keeping a clean sheet. So I don't mind keeping sells, getting the price increase, and then get Kelleher next week. Kelleher may even then get a price rise next week, so I can benefit off of that. I'm not sure what my move will be after that, but it might be looking to maybe get that third City attacker, like I mentioned earlier in the episode. Again, almost certain that my captaincy is going to be on Haaland. I just think that Wolves fixture is too good to turn down. And then Prague at home, I think he starts it. He probably will sub off again early if the job is done like he did in the last Champions League match, but that's good enough for me with Haaland. I do think Salah and Saka are decent or enough options. Saka, although I do think he'll play, I probably wouldn't bother taking the risk just in case there is an injury problem. I think Salah is good enough to score against Chelsea, and RB Leipzig looks okay, but I just don't think it's a better double than Haaland's. That is everything for this episode, so thank you very much for watching. If you're after a bit more Dream Team content, we recorded with the Dream Team Tonic podcast at the weekend, and we had a very special guest, James Ingram, who is a data-led fantasy manager who won not only first in Telegraph last season, he also finished second, third, fourth, and fifth with a model that he built himself. He also has a Dream Team model, and he's had really good finishes in Dream Team, FPL, Sky, lots of fantasy games. So a real eye-opener to his analytical approach. So a real different episode. I really would recommend going and watch that one. So head over to the Dream Team Tonic podcast next and check out that episode. Any questions you got for the game week, drop them in the comments below, and I'll see you on the next one. Bye-bye.